Well, good morning, everybody. I was thinking back to the forecast we were producing in the last couple of weeks of March. And if you remember back then, we were making this prediction that after tax day, things were going to break open for a lot more warmth. That was a bit of a misstep. We continued to see deeper troughs that kind of hung on to the Hudson Bay to the Great Lakes, Northeast kind of region. And this has been, evident here in the recent temperature pattern. So I've been showing you one of my favorite websites. It's called coolweather.com, coolwx.com. You can go and look at all sorts of different graphics on it. The ones I like are right here, though, in these historical animations looking at recent temperature patterns. And so what this does, and we've looked at this many times, but just to make sure you know what you're looking at, take a look at the kind of the legend down here at the bottom. It just looks at all of the GHCN data. And what it is doing here is it's trying to look at weather stations that are either approached or set a new daily record or monthly record or all-time record. And they have different icons for that. So it would be on the heat side here and on the cool side there. And so it's just interesting this morning to see yet another round of cooler air. And we need to be talking about the same region again somewhere around May 8th. I'm not certain on a frost event at that point, but it is something that is now showing up that we have, just better modeling strategy at our fingertips with the artificial intelligence stuff. Back in March, I wasn't using that yet, but now with that, it just gives us another viewpoint to kind of pick up on these on these features. So very cold morning this morning in this area. But there's an interesting bit to the pattern of where the cold air is. And if you look at this morning's temperatures at 5:40, so this is just, this is central time. So the sun was already up, coming up in this area. But just take note of like this region right in through here. And if what you notice is that it got cold in this part of Illinois, northern Indiana, Ohio. You kind of can follow the line where the freeze is early this morning. And I do not know what was going on here, by the way. This is probably a missing data point or a bad data point in the data set here. But if you take a look at that, it's kind of showing up this morning on satellite as the sun is rising. We had a low cloud here, some fog in this area. And essentially, when the ground tried to radiatively cool last night in this region, it met this low deck of clouds, which of course absorbed that and then radiated back toward the surface, keeping the whole thing warmer. So those cloudy nights do keep things a bit warmer. The clouds over Illinois, why we were still able to hit the frosts last night in this area and keep the temperatures cooler, these are much higher. See the shadows underneath them? And they're not nearly as, let's call it thick. There's holes in this. And those clouds didn't come in until just around daybreak, so missed it in that area. So I just found that neat to kind of show. If we go back to yesterday very quickly here, the main feature that I'm thinking hard about is the large, we call this a bear clinic leaf. And this is essentially following the flow of the subtropical jet, which is meeting up at the first of two troughs we're going to watch eject from the Rocky Mountains into the central United States. So what I'm focusing on here is this feature right there. That's a good precursor for the development of a low. So if you ever see something like this in the cloud field, it generally means that we've got the right kind of upper level support with a trough coming through that's going to be developing a storm system. Now take note of some of the convection aided by the mountains throughout the western United States as well. This is all kind of important to the setup of this next system that's going to be coming through. Whoops, sorry about that. So here's what we're looking at this morning. Red flag warnings, critical fire danger in this area continues, very dry conditions and strong winds. Those winds also come back into this part of Southern California. You also have a winter weather advisory that's stretched here across this part of the Cascade Mountains. And as we come over to the other side, that is a winter weather advisory. Over here, this is where we have our frost and freeze issues early this morning. We do have winter storm warnings, though, in this part of the Rockies as well. We'll take a look at what that snow is going to look like in a few moments. But early this morning, just kind of getting a good look at the radar, we did see early morning thunderstorm activity moving out of parts of Nebraska and Kansas and Missouri and Iowa, down into Oklahoma and Arkansas as well. But we're going to be waiting on later today for the main system to kind of wrap itself up into the midsection of the country. There was some lightning in those storms early this morning, just getting a good look at some of the early morning lightning data from Blitzer Tongue. Some folks up early with just being awoken by the lightning and thunder right into here. So great website. I know I pitch it a lot, but I love it. It's just a good resource. Blitzertongue.org. You can go get live lightning data for free. So it's just another great resource here. Okay, so here's the story. If you notice on the day one convective outlook map where they have taken their slight and enhanced risk to the west, the point to the west is what I'm thinking about here. It's all the way to the Colorado border, and it comes down through this part of Oklahoma and Texas. And what we're seeing out of this current system is that it has the potential for a good moisture draw back, meaning the dry line will be setting up farther to the west. And you know that several of these systems earlier this year have pushed that dry line out farther to the east. And I'm thinking about this purely from the point of where will the rain be able to get back to. We'll take a look at some model simulations, but this is at least one good signal. So this is a large area of enhanced risk. The upper level dynamics on this are such that it's a multi-hazard setup, so straight line wind damage, hail, and also the risk of tornadoes. Most of us that are watching this think that the setup for the second wave that comes through will be an even greater risk area and is maybe more... I would just say set up better in terms of the upper level wind shear pattern to make severe weather, but we're not going to ignore, of course, what we've got today on the 25th. So here's the 26th. This is this day 2 of the current system. So Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, eastern Nebraska here, looking at the enhanced but a broad area of severe thunderstorm risk is out ahead of this. And then the reset happens. So this is the second wave that comes through. This will be on Saturday the 27th. And again, we're going to watch this area as our highest risk region, but we'll notice that these two lows will kind of connect here along a frontal boundary. So there will actually be multiple fronts connecting two different lows here. So we have a broad area of severe thunderstorm risk on Saturday. And again, day 4 of this will be on Sunday. And this is what the Storm Prediction Center is currently monitoring. So again, the point, these next 2 systems that are coming through, they've dug in and they eject. So we've kind of made a big case of that all week long. And overall, the narrative has not changed too much with this. So we have 2 systems following this track. They don't dig into the southeast or the east coast, which is why we see a drier signal in that area over the next several days. And we're just going to wait to see where the driest air stays in the southern plains and how much of the Canadian prairie and northern plains miss out on these next couple of systems, all right? But the setup is impressive. Just take a look at this. This will be what our midday jet stream level winds are going to look like. So we have the subtropical component coming in here, enhancing this jet streak, which you see right in through this area. Here's our short wave trough. That's all a part of the broader wave trough that's here. And so the net effect of all of this coming together means we're going to have some strong upper level divergence. Don't know what my computer's doing here, but we're going to have some strong upper level divergence right in this area. That's going to be very supportive of developing a low, a deep one. Now it's going to lose that support, and the second wave behind it coming in here is going to be the one that really kicks off, again, the severe weather on late on Friday into Saturday, Sunday. And we'll watch them both come together, but I want to show you this. If we slide down to 850 millibars, this is the low-level wind field later today. You can see where the moisture transport is and also see where the kind of the mixed layer in the lowest part of the atmosphere is going to set up that dry line. That's pretty far west into Texas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, getting back into Colorado. And even down to the surface, that is where we expect that dry line to sit later today. So this will be the region over which we're going to have to keep, the closest eye on the risk of those strong to severe storms as we kind of play through the day today. So let's go have a look at it with some of our models. We're going to pick up with the high-res NAM first. I think the NAM was pretty well initialized early this morning with where the rain was. I think the HRB was a little bit better, but the NAM goes out 60 hours, and I want to get a longer view of this. So understand that the model is not going to be able to give us the exact position, but it's going to give us this idea of where things are going to be. All right, so by this afternoon, here's just this morning's complex of rain and storms continue to move over this section of the country. We do have the scattered snow that'll be throughout the Rocky Mountains and the next wave coming into the Pacific Northwest, and this is why we have the winter weather advisory out for the Cascades. So this is this afternoon getting into this evening. First low ejects. Now note the timing. The NAM is picking up more on a late evening, like 6, 7, 8 o'clock initiation for some of these storms, farther back here into this part of Kansas. And then by the time we get into the overnight hours, it's kind of building into a few different complexes. They look linear in the model, suggesting we could watch storms kind of line out as they go through parts of Nebraska. So this is what we're going to watch late this afternoon and this evening and into the overnight hours. So as we play into Friday, that complex moves over Iowa, Missouri, cuts across the Mississippi River in Illinois, the backside of the low still spinning here in parts of Nebraska. And then that low moves through the upper Midwest, into the northern plains a bit as well, as the second low starts to emerge here in parts of Utah and Colorado. So again, just get a sense of this. This is this afternoon and this evening, overnight hours tonight, getting into early Friday morning through midday Friday. playing through Friday afternoon and evening. So widespread precipitation, soggy go of it to finish out Friday for a big section here of the northern U.S. Second low comes out. Here it is, right in this here. Oop, I'm sorry. I didn't let go of the button here. Going through Friday again. Let's get all the way out to Saturday. Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. Right here is when the next deep low comes out. We're going to keep an eye on the snow in the Rockies, the rain up along the Front Range here. And then again, we'll be paying attention to this severe weather risk once this comes out on Saturday night. Now, to show you these upper level waves, let's pick this up with the European Artificial Intelligence forecasting system. Wave number 1, that's by Friday night. Here's the much deeper wave 2 that comes through. There's its risk on Saturday into Sunday out ahead of it. Another trough of low pressure then enters into the Pacific Northwest. But after this, the models are kind of setting up a storm track a bit farther to the north, not necessarily digging deep troughs in like this. So as we get into next week, next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, did you see that? We saw more systems kind of skirting across the U.S.-Canada border than we did digging into California, Arizona, and New Mexico and ejecting. Now, this is May 4th, and the models continue to toy around with some sort of a trough. It's been as far south as here. It's now recently been coming out into the Canadian Prairie, but there is something May 3rd and 4th that I want to keep an eye on for the risk of strong to severe storms in the midsection of the United States. But as we play out there, look at this. By May 5th, 6th, and 7th, the AI version of the forecast model once again has kind of given us this signal of a broader trough here. And remember earlier this week we talked about if there's risk in the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, getting up into the northeast of a late frost in early May. It takes a trough that's off the west coast, takes a trough that's here, and takes bigger ridging coming up into and toward Greenland or toward England. We don't have that component, but this still needs to be monitored for the risk of some very late colder air in this area. I really wish I would have been using the artificial intelligence stuff back earlier in March when I was making the predictions for this time period for this area. So I just want to watch this, not ringing alarm bells yet, just suggesting that this is out there. One thing I do want to note is I'd like to flip over to the ensemble, the European ensemble. That trough is there. It's a bit farther out into the open ocean, so this is why the ensembles are not calling for this cold. But it is important to note that by May 8th, 9th, and 10th, the models have changed a bit in the pattern. So the southwest flow is kind of coming to the peak of the Rockies. We're kind of getting flow a bit like this afterward, which would suggest that once we get through maybe the first week of May, which could continue to be a bit volatile in terms of the pattern, this flow coming in and out of the west-northwest would signal a bit of a drier go of it. But that's at the end of the 14-day time period. All right, so I just want to see what could be opening up planting windows back in this area after the rainfall I'm about to show you comes through. So this is kind of fun. We now have 5 sources online right now giving us 7-day forecasts, and let's take a look at all of them. The European Artificial Intelligence has gone even wetter in this area. So we've now seen the forecast of that model just in the next 7 days, 168 hours, picking up on Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, and Missouri, a swath in through here that's looking like it's having the ability to grab upwards of 4 inches of rain in the next 7 days. So the possibilities there. We never take these models at their word. We're just using them to identify patterns. Drier through here, drier back where we have our critical fire danger today, and drier along the east coast with this pattern. The northwest continues to stay wet as the troughs enter here. And as we look at the WPC forecast, notice that they've also got a region in through here that has the potential for some heavier precipitation. I worked really hard on the last 2 days at revamping a lot of my maps so they all have the same projection, all have the same color scheme and layout. I can't wait to reveal all that and get it all running. But again, this is model number 2. The NBM, this is 3. Similar pattern. We're now going to go to the European. Whoops, sorry about that. Now we're going to go to the European. And this is the GFS. So real quick in succession. AI, WPC, National Blend of Models, European Model, and the GFS. And if we look at some probability graphs, this is the chance at getting an inch over the next 7 days. If we step that up to 2 inches, there's a broad area in through here that the European ensemble is picking up on the high probability of 2 inches. and even 4 inches is showing up at a 50 to 70% chance in a few of these areas. So it's very wet in this region right now. I don't expect it to last. In other words, I think we get past this time frame. We start to get into that past May 3rd, 4th. And I think we do have a good chance at seeing drier air come back into this area. But in the near term, this is a lot of moisture. Let's get a sense on the timing by going to the high-res GFS versus the European. Playing this through, we've already watched system number 1 curl up. Here it is in the upper Midwest by the time we get into Saturday. That's when the second low comes out. And take note, this is the one I'm more concerned about for the severe weather threat, both in the GFS and the European in this area. Not to say that today and tomorrow don't have it. It's just saying that Saturday event has really caught my attention. And I want to be keeping a very close eye on it. So Saturday night, right in through this area, all the way down to Texas, as far north as Nebraska, getting into Iowa, Missouri late. So this second pulse comes through. This would be Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and evening. That then moves through the Mississippi River Valley. The northern edge moves up into parts of Manitoba, Ontario, and eventually into Quebec here. And then after that, we watch the next system kind of coming in the Pacific Northwest. But this pattern takes a bit of a shift here on April 30th into May 1st. So the European model brings one more front through here on May the 1st, and then seems to leave a lingering frontal boundary sitting in this area by May the 2nd. And why that's interesting is because remember how the models were attempting to take storm systems May 2nd, 3rd, 4th across the U.S.-Canada border? You can start to see them now, all right? And what will be interesting is if there's any sort of a lingering front to the south here. I know it's not shown up in the European. It's kind of shown up in the GFS, on which we get another round of some heavier rain. And we could link this next system that comes through Canada up with that. But it appears that that time frame, May 3rd and 4th, the models have been toying around with the risk of some heavier rain in through this area. Certainly very windy through this time period, but just want to keep an eye on that. And it's just something that also showed up yesterday when we look out there, May 2nd, 3rd. This is the risk of heavy precipitation by NOAA and the CPC. But again, once we get past that time frame, we do start to see that the models are going to be backing off on the heavier precipitation. At least it seems as though they might. Most of the next couple of weeks, though, if you're in the southeast, up to parts of the Ohio Valley, getting into the kind of the whole East Coast, we're looking at drier conditions. It's kind of in both models. I say drier, not dry, but drier conditions. And this system coming out here May 3rd, 4th, possibly, just needs to be watched. But maybe after that, we start to open up more planting windows for this region, meaning we're going to have to start talking about temperatures here. So next 7 days, this is the frost potential map. Remember, a lot of this is this morning, as we saw those minimum temperatures this morning dipping. And there was just that area of cloud cover that kept this area away from a frost. All right, this is Friday morning, so the cold is kind of tucked in through here. That's where our frost risk is. Getting into Saturday, major warm-up in this section of the country. The troughs in the west cool things back down. Here's Sunday morning. Frost conditions still present here in the western high plains. And as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, that's what the temperatures are looking like. Now let's go ahead and look at the high temperatures and get a GDD calculation on these next 7 days. Here's today's highs, getting into Friday and Saturday. See the effect of the trough really keeping things cool around here. This is into Sunday and Monday. The very warm conditions replacing what's been a pretty cold week for us in the Northeast. As we then go into Monday, Tuesday, remember the pattern takes shape where the lows are starting to now come across kind of the U.S.-Canada border. So quite a bit of mild air coming into the south-central U.S., and there's what the forecast high temperatures are by next Wednesday. Next 7 days, on the accumulation of GDDs shown here. So with that warmer air coming back in, we're starting to push the numbers back up to the 80s, 90s, and 100s here for the accumulation of GDDs over the next 7 days using the corn formula. And the models are sticking with warmer conditions, Rocky Mountains east. So the troughs entering in this area keep it cooler. This is day 10 through 15, still a mild look from the GFS, which has been echoed by the European. That's day 5 through 10, getting out there day 10 through 15. Now take note, the European model is keeping that colder air farther off the coast. The artificial intelligence model has got this closer to this part of the Northeast. And I just went out there and looked at the actual forecast for low temperatures on May the 9th, that'd be Thursday. And it's got the frost line pretty far to the north, but there's a lot of areas in through here where we could just be seeing temperatures in the 30s throughout the Great Lakes into the Northeast. So I just want to make sure that that's something we monitor carefully as we go forward in this prediction. The other thing I've been watching carefully, and I don't show it every forecast video, but it's the soil temperatures. And by next week, as we watch the 50-degree isotherm, the soil temperatures move pretty far to the north here in the Midwest. It's already above that here in parts of the Canadian Prairie, getting into Montana. What I'll be curious about is when we really start to get these warm temperatures farther to the north as we begin May. Because I know a lot of you have commented about this, and I'll be honest, I just don't know a whole lot about them, but I do know that we're waiting on, I think, about 64-degree soil temperatures right around Illinois for a big cicada event that's supposed to start in May. Before I show you that, I do want to point out that it's neat to see that in the GFS model, we can see some of the urban heat island effect with the soil temperatures. So you can see these major cities and where we're getting the heat from the cities showing up in the prediction. But the article I want to show you, this is from Scientific American. They're calling it the double brood, where a 13-year and a 17-year cycle of cicadas could overlap in parts of Illinois. What is interesting about this is that when we start to hear the cicadas, we often think there's I have to go look this up, but there's like a time period after which there might be a frost, right? So I don't know if it's 90 days, 100 days, something like that. So it's something interesting to be monitoring. It really boils down to seasonal variability. But I wanted to show you this is what we're going to be thinking about. I'll be honest, my favorite thing, cicadas are what they are. It's a summer noise for me. I'm from Illinois, so cicadas mean summer to me. But have you ever seen those cicada killer, I don't know if they're a wasp or whatever they are. They are fascinating creatures to watch, and so I imagine they're going to be with full bellies with all of this going on here. Okay, sorry about that. Let's get back into the forecast. We've been monitoring every day the evolution of the May outlook from the European model. And I just want to point out that the model has gone over drier in a big section of the Ohio Valley, the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South, Southeast, suggesting that once we get into May, kind of as our analog forecast has suggested, we might find some planting windows in through here and get this crop in and established pretty quickly. Now, it's not coming in these next 10 days. Maybe in this part of the Ohio Valley it is, but not here. But just wanted to point out the latest forecast. From here, let's talk about a couple of bigger picture things, and we're still putting together some new ideas on the long range. Our current ocean temperature graphic, starting to see more cool water showing up here. And if you look over the last 7 days, I'm just watching continually for any sort of a change. This comes from Tropical Tidbits. Don't see a lot of cooling in the North Pacific, but certainly our La Nina signal is beginning to show up. So this is a 7-day change map in ocean temperatures. To finish this out, let's look at a couple of things internationally. I want to talk about temperatures. Newest forecast went over very warm across parts of the Black Sea region. We can also see the heat that's coming into this part of South America, where we know we're expecting very, very dry conditions. Take a look at some other places around the world of interest to you as I flip this over to a global precipitation map. Very wet throughout Indonesia. Flooding risks continue south of the Yangtze River. Flooding risks continue here in this part of the Middle East. Western Europe has trended a bit wetter recently in the forecast. And if you come down here into this section of Brazil, we are starting to see this drier signal showing up again. Now, it is important to note, because someone asked this the other day, how, this drier signal, how well is it timed with normal getting toward drier? So remember that these maps are anomalies. So we're looking at about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch off of average in this area. So it is an earlier shutdown of the monsoon, while flooding continues in southern Brazil. So we're down here in, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, along the Paraná River. But I did just bring up, let's close that. I did just bring up here, though, from weatherandclimate.com, Mato Grosso, which is, let's go have a look at it here real quick. Let's bring up this animation. Look at the next 10 days or so. Mato Grosso is here, this state, and about 45% of the Safrinha corn is grown there. And just take a look. Let's look at the numbers in parentheses. From April to May, they typically average about, 5.75 inches in April to 1.63. So we do expect late April to early May for there to be a drop in total precipitation. The point is to say that it's exiting a bit early in this area. Some places not picking up any. So we'll just monitor this and continue to see if it's going to show up with any sort of an issue on the Safrinha crop. But I'm going to stop there and tell you all to have a good rest of your day, and we'll pick this up again tomorrow morning. Thanks.